Well, folks, Bruce here from the Coasters Club, and the class of 64 at Buller High School. Interesting class. A lot of boys from out country. One of them that I saw on the list, a fella called Bob Calvert. And Bob, I've tracked you down.
Yep.
Thank you so much for talking to us. Now, as you know, look, the Coasters Club has about 21,000 members at the moment. And this video will be viewed by around about 175,000 people. So really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you.
What's your full name?
Just Robert Calvert.
Rob, didn't they give you a middle name?
No.
Goodness me. Oh, that's all right. Because coming out the road there, you know. Whereabouts were you born?
I was born Buller Workingmen's Club, like a lot of people.
Oh, where the maternity ward was
The
there?
old maternity ward was there. So, born there in 1950, so I'm an old fella.
I was a 52 baby.
Yeah.
So 1950.
Yeah.
Who were your mum and dad, and what did they do?
Jenny Calvert and Robert Calvert. Dad was the head electrician at Stockton from late 30s, early 40s, right through to when he retired in 73. Funnily enough, he retired so many weeks later. The Buller Electric Power Board employed him, and he became, after they closed the gas works down, they needed extra electricians to put stoves in. So that's what Dad became. Dad worked there. Doing that, he was in his 80s, in his 70s, sorry, when he retired. But he worked in the office with Maureen Lennon and I'm trying to think of the other lady. He worked in the store, so he did probably another 10 years after he retired.
And Bill Brown would have been the engineer in those days.
That's correct.
And who was the other fella in the store? A big guy. Can't think of his name. But
yeah.
When you come home from the home, what was your first home? Where did you?
Yeah, at 43 River Road in Hector, and I stayed there right until I got married. So in those days you didn't go flatting. I married a local girl, another Hector girl called Zelma Wilson. Married in 72 and still married. So I'm back in the trend for a lot of people.
There's a few of us together.
Yeah, there's a few of us. Yeah.
Actually, I remember your dad because I started as a sparky with Connors and Blackmore in 1968.
Yeah.
And your dad was well known in the mines as Mr. Mines electrician, really.
He was. Yeah.
So.
And Jenny, my mother, when they married up in Petone, the first two daughters, and they were born in Petone. My brother George, who's another well-known coaster, he was born in Westport as well. Mum never wanted to be on the coast, actually. Mum, her future was in Petone with her sisters and everything else, so she was always commuting back and forward. She was a Petone girl, although she was born in Scotland. Dad was a Petone boy, but he wanted to be on the coast.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of history there. Mum's family came out from Scotland in 21. They went to Petone. They were to go down the coast, and Westport Stockton Coal Company, or the Westport Coal Company, brought them out here, and it was a while before they took them down the coast to Millerton. And old Jimmy Adam, Dad's mum, did work in Millerton for quite some time, and he ended up in Charming Creek mine at the end of his working days, but he lived at a place called Watson's Mill Flat up Charming Creek, which is, he lived in the old Watson's house right until he retired and became too old to, he bred pigs up there, and believe it or not, border collies. And so they left. Dad disassembled the house and took it down to Hector and reassembled it.
So you're a Hector boy?
Oh, I'm a Hector boy, born and bred, really. Yeah.
Now tell me, for the youngsters out there that are watching this, when you were a kid, what were the games you played? What did you do at home to keep yourself busy?
Wow.
That we can talk about.
I didn't get up and to a lot of mischief. But you know, it was in some ways there was more to do. I spent a lot of time up in the bush, up Charming Creek,
Yep.
playing with the other young fellas until you got a bit more adventuresome. I used to go bike riding a lot, but I played rugby. Later on, I developed an interest in bands and played in bands, like
Johnny here.
Mm.
So where did your parents live?
Right down the second last house, River Road. It's now occupied by Dad. When Dad died in '94, we sold it, and it's been in the same person's hands since. I don't know who it is, but yeah.
You know, I was in Hector recently, and I came across there was a little sign on the road, and it said, "Country Music Museum."
Oh yeah.
So I thought I'll go and have a look.
Mm.
So I stopped, went down, hunted down. Unbelievable. I walked inside, every wall, the ceiling, there was 16,500 original hits that he had. And a lot of them were signed by people like Elvis Presley. These are, it blew me away.
I know, I worked with that boy's dad in Stockton for a while.
Right.
Yeah. It's his boy that's got that. I'm just trying to think. There's a bit of a...
Yeah, I can't think of his name. But when I went in, Shania Twain had just been there to have a look.
Did she?
Yeah.
Ah.
So, do you remember ever talking to your grandparents?
Yeah. Of Jim and Jenny.
Yeah. What did they do? What did they tell you? Did they? You know,
no, I was of an age then when it's not that I couldn't take it in. Jimmy was the last to die. I believe it was about 62 he died, so I would have been 12.
You're still pretty young.
He stayed 1 or 2 years in our house at Hector after Mum and Dad looked after him for a while, after his wife had died, Jenny had died.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't remember a lot about him, but they were hard-working people from Fife in Scotland when they came out. They were coal mining family. Dad's side of the family, they come out here on a boat into Auckland in 1860, so it's totally different. They come from Yorkshire. They were actually what's known as remittance men. Dad's father and his brother were paid to come out here and stay here.
Oh. 1860s.
1860s.
The originals, eh?
Albert's land, as they were called. They actually had some land in Northland that was they'd bought, and they come out here, it was surveyed. They didn't settle it. They were there for a wee while and left.
When did you, whereabouts did you go to primary school?
Granity. All my school days were at Granity. The kindergarten at Knockall.
And do you remember any of the kids that you went to school with at the primary school?
Oh yeah, just all of them.
What sort of names?
Well, you're looking at George Davies, John Mumm, Bruce Blair, Alan Ireland. I can remember the older boys, of course, you know, the Murray twins, John Stack, John Blair, Trout Dixon.
Wow.
Well, they all virtually come from Hector and Knockall.
There were some toughies come from out there. Did you ever meet Brumble Mumm?
Oh yeah, Brumble coached our rugby team on a few occasions.
Because he was an All Black.
He was.
Very, very famous man.
Very hard worker. Lovely family, the Mums. I know Bidgie. I still occasionally get to hear from Bidgie Mum.
Yep.
John, I've seen just recently at a funeral in Westport, was Max Wallop, another great country guy who very involved in rugby. Gave a lot of his time to rugby. He died recently. Or Lionel Shaw. Lionel came from Millerton, but I had a bit to do with him. Still keep in touch with people down there.
Yeah.
Not just through Facebook, but we still go down there quite a bit.
You're, I can tell you that and I wander from Caramere to Haast in the same way that you do, really. And a lot of people know you. A lot more people. You're very well known.
Oh, right. So when you say I'm well known, like,
in a good way. People,
yeah, okay. I was at the
People-
Last Resort a couple of weeks ago, and I got out to do my work, and this voice yelled out, "Hi, Bob," and it was
Watson,
Dave Watson.
Dave Watson,
And Betty, yeah.
and
That was about another 20-minute journey plus.
yeah,
I knew if I'd had the coffee they'd offered me, I would have been there for another half hour.
yeah.
But all that meant was my work involves certain things that if I stay longer, I still get my job done, but I'm just home later. So I'll, occasionally say, yeah.
So did Granity have a high school?
Granity did. Well, it did, but not when I was there. My sisters went through the high school at Granity. Yeah, so Granity was like a high school. They give that higher, what's the name?
So you'd have gone to Buller High.
No, it was Westport Technical College when I was there.
Oh, when did it change its name?
Yeah, now I might look. I know I started work in '67.
I started in '68
at Buller High School.
And no, I started work at Connor and Blackmore in '68, and I left Buller High School. I don't recall it being called.
No, when I first went there, it was, and then it changed while I was there.
Yeah,
yeah.
So you're in amongst that group of very. It's a word, physical, very, very fit young men that come from out country.
I wouldn't have thought that, but hey, I did play rugby. I did go, did a lot of walking and Charming Creek. I love Charming Creek, still do.
Yeah, it's
Every
beautiful.
time I go down there, I go up there. But it has significance for me, I guess, because the family were involved. They lived up there, and I was never there when they lived up there. I can never remember that. But my sisters remember it vividly and got pictures from up there. And that house, Dad disassembled it and took it down, and when they sold it in the early 60s, Frosty Reese, another person from the Reeses, Betty Reese, who married, they bought the house, and when they went to do it legally, there was no title. So I don't know how this happened, but Dad built this house on this piece of land right next to where Grandad Adam established a bowling green. And Nahor, this was Nahor, not Hector, sorry.
Yeah.
And he established this bowling green, but it was up and running, but it was never any good because the smoke from the powerhouse ruined the turf.
And killed the grass off.
Yeah, it did. It didn't allow it to do what it should have been like. But so the house he lived in was right next to that. So then I can remember someone else saying recently they moved that to the building and everything to the Knockall Pitch Theatre across the road at Hector.
Yeah.
And it survived, the bowling green survived there till it was finished.
And did you come across Basil Climo when you're down there?
No. Basil, I've stayed in a house just down from Basil when I went whitebaiting down there, but no, I haven't seen Basil. No.
If you had a favourite subject in school, what would it have been?
Well, favourite subject would have been, I guess, history. Reading comics. We had no TV. TV came very late.
Yep.
Well, you wouldn't have had TV until.
No,
so
right.
It was comics, and basically in those days it was adventure comics or war comics or whatever. I can remember going around Hector and Knockall sometimes at night with a sack over my shoulder with all the war comics I wanted to swap, and I'd go knocking on people's doors who I knew was into comics. I knew of certain houses where they would have hundreds of them, so I'd swap my old ones for new ones.
We used to do exactly the same.
Yes, and it's people, if you tell them that now, they think, oh, there's something wrong with you. You went around with a kit thing on your back. Well, if you wanted something to do and something to read, you had to do that.
There was no other way.
No, there's no other way. But
Bobby, do you have a favourite teacher? Can you remember one where you go, I remember you and I liked you?
Yeah, I think I did. The latter years of my primary school, we had a teacher called Lou Manson. He's still alive here in Richmond now.
Wow.
Yeah, I spotted him. He moved to Reefton, after he left Granity in the 60s, and he ended up being the principal at Wakefield for a long time till he retired.
So he obviously knew what he was doing.
Yeah, well, he's apparently, I think he's still alive. He's living in Richmond, and one day I spotted him in the mall and I had a talk to him. And he told us one day, we were all running right when he left, and when he came back, he says, you children are like a bunch of headless chooks. And I went up to him and I says, yeah, you know, you're probably right. There was a lot of headless chooks there, and amongst a lot of them. But strangely enough, the class I'm talking about, I'm pretty sure it was 11 boys in the class, and unfortunately at this time 5 of them are now deceased already, and I don't know of any girls who have passed away, but 5 of the boys have.
Oh, that's
yeah, and you know, they're all for different reasons, but quite sad really. I don't know another class about the same time that suffered the same thing, but yeah, like I say, Richard Coleman's the latest one. Quite sad, nice guy. Lionel Shaw I grew up with, but he wasn't in that class I'm talking about, but he's recently died as well.
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
So you played, I know you played a lot of footy.
I tried to play rugby.
Oh, sorry, I mean you tried to.
Yeah.
So who did you play for?
Not always knuckleball, but I had a couple of good years playing for Granity in the school competition. I enjoyed that, and we had a lot of guys there who played good rugby away. John Mumm played for universities. I think he may have been captain. And his son Dean Mumm played for Australia.
He did indeed.
Yeah, and played for the Wallabies. So, you know, this rugby runs right through that family.
Yeah, well, it's that area out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And so you've left school.
Yeah.
What was your first job?
Dare I say it, coal mines.
Straight in?
Straight in. Like a lot of people I was with, it seemed to be the thing to do. I think I was capable of doing other things. I just didn't have the qualifications.
Yep.
I'm probably doing more technical stuff now. I've become faultman for phone systems and Wi-Fi and that. And there's quite a bit of learning to do with that.
So were you underground?
Not initially. When I first went up to Stockton, I started on the railway, the aerial.
Yeah.
Although I must say the first fortnight I had was at Knockall itself, and I painted cleaned down and painted the coal crusher. In the bins that the coal was to go to the briquetting plant, and it was still there at the time, but not long after that it was all taken away.
Was it a briquette? Was it?
Briquetting plant at Hector, yeah. Can't remember that. It was probably about 8 stories tall.
I remember there was a big building there. I never went in it.
Yeah, they tried it. It didn't work. It was an old system that they bought. It was a German system. And I'm not fully sure of the reasons why, but they couldn't get it to work. No one would buy it. And yeah, so I cleaned this crusher down and painted it. It was never used again. So it was an unnecessary task, but that's just how it is.
Yeah. If one of your mates, one of your good mates, was to describe you in that first period of time when you started work, what would he say about Bobby Calvert?
Oh, I don't know. It's a lot of people you grow up with, they're always the same. You always try and look after everyone else. You know, it's the first days buying a car and trying to get a girlfriend.
What was your first car?
It was a Vauxhall E.
Oh, don't you wish you still had it?
Well, unfortunately, it was a real good car, but I didn't have a licence when I bought it. So I had to take one of my mates to Christchurch. He drove it home.
Yeah.
After I paid for it. So Dad would never take me on a driving lesson. He never has to this day. So I had to learn in the car myself. So I remember one of the first bad instances when I hit the gravel in the bottom of the Caramere Bluff. I went over the bridge.
Yeah.
And the first couple of bends I went over the bank. I couldn't drive.
On your way to Caramere?
No.
Oh,
I
coming
was
back.
just learning to drive. I was just going. And I remember rushing back, getting this cocky down the road to pull me out. There was no damage to the car. It wasn't like a high-speed crash or I endangered anyone. I probably endangered myself.
Yeah.
But the things that happened those days compared to what happens today, it's all... I remember taking my boys driving lessons for months and making sure they got it right. But it certainly didn't happen in my day.
No, we were chucked in the driver's seat and went from there.
And I remember in Westport shaking like a leaf, sitting in this car. Someone else took the car to Westport, of course, and went outside. I think it was a guy at McDonald. Yeah,
I remember one of the McDonald boys.
Yeah, I think, and he took me around the block and says, "Okay, that's cool," and
carry on.
License, yeah.
Oh, I love it.
So I've learned a lot since then. Like have a lot of other people, but things change, with motor vehicles. And
so when you decided to finish at the mine,
that was I was married on October the 7th, 1972. Within about 3 weeks, I was finished. My wife didn't want me in the mine.
Yep.
She said it's good money, and I dare say if I had stayed, I still would have earned good money for quite some time. But I went to Buller Timber Processing from there and worked with Rodney Dawes, and I became treatment plant operator. That was one of the first things I did.
Yep.
So from there, I worked there right up till 81. I got offered a job here at Wilkes' Timber Company in 81. They were at the time treating all the round produce that was going to Marlborough for the wines when they were coming on. Within 3 years, they'd lost that because I remember the Labor government, when they've come in, they couldn't sell the wine they were making in Blenheim. Not many people remember this, but they wanted government assistance, so the government assisted them in taking some of the grapes out. So they didn't want the produce, so the job I had come up to, that sort of quickly went by the by.
Isn't she a strange old world?
And look what's happened since.
Yeah.
So what happened, I went into the planer mill, I became a timber machinist.
Yes.
I worked at that for 2 to 3 years, and one day Zell said, I think we can do better than this. We're better than working with someone else who worked for ourselves. So we bought, some people would call it a dairy in Nelson, but it was more a superette. It was the Night Owl Dairy. And we left in 90, and we did reasonably well out of it.
You enjoy dealing with people, I guess. That was.
Yeah, it was. The hours were horrendous. It was 7 days, up past 7, and some nights Zell and Ryan was still making cones at past 11, 12 o'clock at night.
That's right.
And looking at one another and think, 4 years was enough of that, because we had 2 young boys at that stage.
Yeah.
And when we went in the shop, one was 3.5, 4, and the other one was 6. So school was across the road. The doctor lived next door. The pub was across the road. Everything was there. So, yeah, we stayed 4 years, got out. We built the house we're in now in Richmond in 1989, moved in 90, and we've been here ever since.
Tell me, how old were you when you first started dating? Can you remember your first date?
So, yeah, well, probably college days in Westport, going into Westport on a Friday night, going to St James or the Vic, and just talking, going sitting with girls in the picture theatre.
Yep.
Nothing bad happened. It was just a kiss and a cuddle, and I think all of us did it.
Down to Tony Murich's for some fish and chips, and then home.
Yeah. Well, that came later. The fish and chips thing came later. I can remember going into town at 1 o'clock in the morning getting a feed at Tony Murich's.
Oh, that's great, wasn't it?
And I remember the porterhouse steak, the chips, the onions, the eggs, and the sausages all mixed and piled high on a plate.
Yeah.
And if you got to Westport and it was closed for some reason, and you had 4 guys in the car, there wasn't much happiness.
I agree with that. So, When did you meet your good lady?
Selma,
Yeah.
probably through there was a youth club started up in Hector in the Knuckle Pitch Theatre, and they used to have nights there. And I was actually playing the band then with some local boys from Westport, and we played out there quite a few times. Earlier on, it was Robert Spout. You remember Robert Spout?
I do indeed.
Russell Serra, who's
Yep.
no longer with us, and Roger Burns.
Yes.
Before Roger came along on the bass, there was a guy called Jeff Davies briefly. He
I
played,
remember.
yeah. You don't remember Jeff?
No. So you were playing out there. Did you
we
spot
played
her?
in Westport as
Did you
well.
spot her in the crowd?
Oh, I grew up with Zell, being Zell's from Hector.
Yes.
Yeah, so I always remember going to the local dairy and seeing her brother and her. But Zell and Colin never went to Granity High School. They went to Sydneyville because their families grew up in Sydneyville, or her mother and her family were always out there. So they always went to Sydneyville. So they lived in Hector, but didn't really go to Granity School.
So how did the first date go?
First date, well, I just walked her home from the youth club. Yeah.
You know, and then how long did you know her before you got married?
Well, I would say it's 70 right through to 72, late 72,
Yeah.
so quite a while. Yeah.
And so you've been married now 47 years.
Yeah, coming up.
Doesn't time fly?
Yeah, well, by today's standard, people look at you, and they think 47 years, it's not normal. But you say there is a lot that are, but there's a hell of a lot that aren't.
Yeah,
either.
yeah, that's very true.
It's not really indicative. It didn't used to be like that, because people, once you got married, you relied on one another. Now, you don't rely on one another. You know, we have a social welfare system that allows for anything today.
Yeah. In fact, it encourages anything, doesn't
It
it?
does, yeah.
Was there a person in your life that you came across that changed the way you thought in a positive way? Was there someone who came along where you went and it was just a positive experience?
Yeah. There is. There's a few, and one that's come to mind recently, and she was a married lady, she lived behind me, and she had a girl later in life, but she looked after other people. She took in people who were from broken homes and looked after them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever remember the Douthits from Westport.
Keith Douthit.
Eddie Douthit.
Eddie Douthit.
Eddie Douthit lived in this house behind me in Westport.
Was Keith a school teacher?
Yeah, he's in here. He's in Nelson. He was.
Okay.
I think he was the principal or one of the main teachers at Auckland Point School here.
Yeah.
Yeah. He lived in Wakefield, still does. Apparently, Eddie Douthit he lives in Aussie, and this is a few years ago. He said Eddie still comes home and goes to the Camara races.
Good man. He's a good man.
And he at the time he said he's not well. There was an issue with his health, and it wasn't the best. But he was still alive at that time, 5-6 years ago. But this lady's name was Sharon Moffat, or she had been Sharon Walsh, and I'll never ever forget things she did. She gave me records of Sandy Nelson, Gene Krupa, and all this, and it got me interested in playing the drums. But she was a very positive lady for me, and I'm trying to think of others that, you can't go past your parents either.
True.
And other people, she's the main one that sticks out for some reason, and, she looked after a lot of people. Nice lady. She lost her daughter. She was murdered in the 80s, remember? Faith Moffat. She was murdered in the Shenandoah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was their only daughter, Jim.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Jim died last year. Jim is buried with Faith now in Westport. I noticed that when I went down there to a funeral recently. But I've tried to track Sharon down, and I haven't actually seen her another guy I grew up next to was John Walsh. Remember the Walshes?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, well, Johnny said, Sharon, I'm pretty sure she was in Kaikoura, and this was quite a few years ago, and she was working at the Adelphi that's now gone. So I tried to look her up, and no one knew her name, so I'm not sure whether the information Johnny gave me was correct or not, but I haven't heard of her since. But yeah, I'd love to catch up with her and just have a chat to her. But yeah, I think that she was a really, yeah, it's quite hard to, sometimes you think back and reflect and you think, yeah, well, they were.
Yeah.
Because, it's hard to imagine, and I never really gave it much thought, but when you think back, she was, and that Eddie Douthit and I got on really well. We had a lot to do with Eddie. I can remember he was smoking at the time, and he was quite young. But, I think it was probably about the time I started smoking, and that was a real bad thing because it was with me for a long time, but I've been off for quite a long time, and I consider my health to be quite good.
Yeah, tell me about the bands.
The bands, well, yeah, the first time it was with Robert Spout, and I went to, how did I start? Griff. You remember Evan Griffiths?
Oh, yeah, from Birchfield.
Yeah, we used to beat hell out of I had a home study dictionary, and I turned up Biscuit Tin, and I had some more books as well, and we used to play the music and thrash away with these old sticks. And Griff thought I was a bit better than him, but one day he said to a guy who worked in Betts Motors in the stores department who was trying to get a band together called Norman Whale. Can't remember him.
I can't remember that. No.
And so I went in to talk to this guy, and I had to do Wipeout on the counter. Well, he says you're in. So
you did the full Wipeout?
No, just a bit of it. But anyway, when I think back, it was quite comical.
Yeah.
So I got this job in this band. I didn't have a drum set. All I had was a tin can, home study dictionary and something else. So I had to get something together. And I did manage to get a bass drum and a snare drum and a hi-hat. And I went along to band practice, and it was with Robert Spout and Jeff Davies, and I think Russell was involved with it at the time too. So that became the Out Crowd. But just prior to that, I must admit, just prior to that, I did play occasionally at country with a guy called Fred Radahy. And that was called Fred's Fireballs.
Freddie Radahy. I remember that name. Goodness me.
Yeah, I'm about to go and see Fred. I just got told recently where he is. He was in Hokitika.
Yeah.
His daughter is in Hokitika, but Fred's now in the unit at Grey Hospital.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have to go in there for work, so I'll
go and say hello.
Him. Yeah, so Fred's Fireballs started with the Out Crowd. We went for a year. And after that folded, I started playing with Joe Hollis, Peter Hollis.
Yep. They lived around the corner in Mill Street.
Yeah, and Russell Sierra,
yeah.
And Roger Burns. And initially that band was called Snatch.
Right.
Then that probably went for a year or 2 years, but then that evolved to a group called Manseer. And that had, when I think, I left Manseer in 1980, so that went from about 73, 74 right through to 1980, and every year there was a different combination of guys played. I think initially it was John Peter Hollis, Russell Sierra, myself and Roger Burns, and I think Peter Hollis went away, then Michael Durkin took over the bass.
Yep.
And we used to practice up at his farm, and that was quite unusual because we always used to say, how much we owe you for power dirt? Oh, don't worry about the power, he says. They left the power on here when the house was shut down.
That was out at the 9 Mile.
Yeah, probably the power's probably still going to the house.
Well, look, you weren't a teenager in the late 60s or 70s without coming across you. Might not have known you at the time.
Yeah.
But certainly, you guys were the first of the bands, weren't you?
Well, Peter Smith was around with Joe and Peter and Greg Quinn.
Yep.
They went for a while at the John Bosco Youth Club. You remember that? Joe
No.
used to play push. It was an old church organ that he used to have to push to keep going.
Yeah.
You might remember that.
No,
He
no.
used to play a few Peter Smith songs and different sort of stuff.
Did you play with Johnny Maxwell?
No.
No, Johnny was later, wasn't he?
Yeah, Johnny played with Robert Spout for quite some time.
Yeah, he
and
did.
that was after Robert and I, that band finished. Robert started up with John Maxwell, boy of Neighbours, Ronnie Neighbours.
Yep.
And I'm trying to think who else it was. They were quite good, yeah. But Johnny played with the Echoes as well.
He's still pretty good, you know.
Yeah, he is, yeah. Well, it's the last 10, 12 years, Johnny comes see me one day here and said, "Oh, would you like to have another go?" And I got back into it because I hadn't played. I played when I moved up here because we found it tough moving from the coast to Nelson.
Yep.
That, to buy a house here was almost half again.
Mission impossible.
Mission impossible. So I started playing in bands, and I played about 5 different bands when I came up here. Not full time. There was one that I played full time with. And one I played in featured a guy called Mullins. I can't remember his first name. It'll come to me in a second. But anyway, I probably played with them for about 2 or 3 years. This guy Mullins I'm thinking of was in the Troubadours, the first rock and roll band in Westport.
Yes.
And he played with Hambone Wilson. And a few other guys who are now deceased in Westport.
Yep.
1 or 2 of them went to play with the Echoes. Why can't I?
No, I can't think of his name. I know. I can picture.
His sister is Glennis Mullins, still in Westport.
Yeah. And so you still play a little bit now?
No, I still got the kit.
Yeah.
I actually got the kit out at Christmas for the grandkids.
Give it a bit of a...
And, well, geez, they thought I was the bee's knees. I'll tell you, I got this thing up and set up in the garage, and they were here for probably a week and a bit. And
Did you do a wipeout?
No, I didn't. I didn't really have time because I couldn't get hold of the sticks because the kids were into it. And then we had other rallies that come. Well, they didn't want to go home. The kids were still bashing around at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And that was the night we had New Year's Eve here. Yeah.
Well, Bobby, thank you so much for...
yeah, well, we only touched on it. I haven't actually realised how involved it was going to be, but yeah, no, it's been really good.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Because what's going to happen with this is that a copy of this will be sent to the Westport Museum.
Yeah.
A copy will come to you on a memory stick.
Yeah.
It'll be divided into episodes on the Coasters Club.
Yeah.
And as I said before, we have about 21,000 members and about 175,000 people now watching every 7 days.
Mm.
So I have no idea why, but that's just the way it is.
This happened just prior to my dad dying. In 92, a guy of Wright who worked for the dock in Punakaiki, he chronicled a lot of older people. He went around and talked to them.
Yeah, he was a historian.
Yeah.
Les Wright.
Les Wright.
Les Wright was his name.
He went up north and died. He went to a wedding with his wife and he went on a walk and something happened and he died up north. And he wrote an article, I've got it, it was on Dad and Charming Creek from 1929. He talked about what it was like up there living with Mum's parents.
Wow.
And him and Dad, when they first got married before they had any of us children. But yeah, it was very interesting.
Les Wright was fantastic. Down in southwestern there, we've got Bernie Preston, who's been going around for a number of years interviewing on tape elderly people.
Oh, yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is capture. I mean, you're in great nick, you're in great shape, and I'm trying to capture you while you're in great shape to tell your story.
Mm. Yeah, was a lot. Have you seen Clive Aldrich?
No, but certainly.
Rodney Dawes.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
Because
I know.
I've been actually thinking of doing the same myself. Writing like you have, storyline, how you want it to start. Because there's things they know. One of the best chroniclers I've ever heard is my father-in-law, who's now gone, Bob Wilson, he was amazing. He could tell you who he bought a 4-square aerial off in 1932, how much he paid for it.
I love it.
He could remember the day he went to this guy's place and bought it. And the first event it was actually an ex-serviceman who died overseas, and this guy's mother was selling it.
Yeah.
And the story about that, and his, the years he was dating Ada.
Yeah.
And anyone at any time, he could almost tell you how much they bought a house in Hector for and when they sold it and blah blah. But this is all disappearing.
Well, you know what I found. People think they don't have a story to tell.
Yeah.
I haven't found anyone who doesn't have a story to tell.
Yeah, I know.
And it's a matter of, and if you're out there listening to this and you want me to contact you, just type yes in the comments and I'll be in contact.
Yeah.
And I'll be on your door. And it wasn't that bad, Bobby, was it?
No, it wasn't actually. But funny thing is, and I talked to Clive Aldridge at Mac's Willet's funeral, and I said to him there, I'm going to call around and see you, and I've got to do this because there's been many people I haven't gone and seen that died.
Yeah.
Because we're getting to the end of our days now, whether we like it or not. You know, it's just how it's happening. It's a natural progression, life, but there's a lot of nice people out there, and funnily enough, the nice ones never get their dues simply because they don't take any attention. We don't give them attention because we always pursue people we've always found it hard to get on with. You know what I mean? I do. And look, it's quite sad.
I've got a saying, and it is that you can't sell a secret.
No.
But look, folks, that's Bobby Calvert. He's a coaster. And we'll catch you later. Thanks, Bobby.